You've heard this story about contact lenses and how they are clogging up our waterways, but why are those tiny little things causing such a big problem? Well, think about it. 45 million people wear contacts, with many people using those daily disposable lenses. Now that adds up to 14 billion contacts every year. Researchers at Arizona State University found up to 20% of wearers toss their used lenses into sinks and toilets. And because they don't break down, 50,000 pounds of that plastic gets flushed or otherwise goes down the drain. Those pieces of plastic become even smaller when they go through the sewage treatment plants, and they can poison birds, fish, and other wildlife.